Dr. Chen blinked at him, her expression earnest. Oh, I assure you, Admiral, I'm taking this very seriously. You're the first alien species we've encountered with a centralized Imperial command, void-based propulsion, and what looks like trinaural coordination. This is historic. I just... don't see why we have to start with threats. Isn't diplomacy more efficient? Kether's jaw clenched. His crew shifted uneasily. This wasn't how fear was supposed to work. The human didn't tremble. She didn't beg. She asked questions. And worse, she listened. He growled low, a sound that normally made weaker species faint. Do you not understand? Human, we have erased civilizations greater than yours. Entire suns have dimmed beneath our power. This, he gestured to the endless hull of the Void Reaper, as death incarnate. Fascinating, she replied, scribbling something into a tablet off. Your species uses ritualistic displays of power as psychological leverage. It's a common trait among conquest-based empires. We studied similar patterns in the ruins of the Prelith Combiner. You wouldn't know them. They're extinct. Kether felt a chill. This human knows more than she should. The communications officer leaned close. Admiral, or should we jam her signal? This conversation is being recorded on multiple channels, transmitting somewhere to where Kether snapped. Unclear, the officer admitted. Possibly to their homeworld, possibly ... farther. Kether's 3 eyes narrowed, then shut it down. But before the order could be executed, Dr. Chen smiled again. Oh, and Admiral, we appreciate your attempt at intimidation, but Earth has a rather long history with threats. The Mongols, the Huns, atomic standoffs, galactic warlords aren't quite the novelty they used to be. A quiet cough escaped from the navigation officer's throat. Kether glared. No one spoke. Dr. Chen continued, cheerful as ever. Don't get me wrong. Your ship is very impressive. The bone motif is ... bold, very expressive of your species' values. But if you're expecting fear, you might want to study your target audience a little more. Humans have developed ... resilience. It's sort of a survival trait. Kether exhaled slowly. And what of your leaders, your generals? Will they send a fleet to stop us? Oh, I doubt it, she said. They're watching, of course, but this is just first contact. Our protocols discourage escalations unless absolutely necessary. You think this isn't necessary, he roared. No, I think you think this is necessary. Big ship, big threats, but from where I'm sitting, Admiral, this looks like a species trying very hard to be scary. You know, we had a saying on Earth once, the louder the bark, the smaller the bite. Silence fell and then unexpectedly laughter from her. It was soft, amused, and entirely inappropriate for the situation. The bridge crew of the Void Reaper exchanged horrified glances. Was she mocking them? Dr. Chen wiped a tear from her eye. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. It's just ... Oh, the look on your face. You're genuinely confused, aren't you? Kether didn't answer. She leaned closer to her screen. Let me help you understand something. Earth doesn't fear what it studies. We study what we fear and then we adapt. We learn. That's why I'm here, not to fight, not to negotiate, to observe, because in the end, we always figure it out. The science officer at the back of the bridge looked up. Sir ... I'm detecting low-frequency bursts. Her ship is scanning us. Shut it down, Kether barked. It's too late, the officer muttered. She already has partial readings of our shielding and propulsion. Kether's claws flexed at his sides. Enough of this. He turned back to the screen. Dr. Chen, I will give you one final warning. Turn your vessel around. Leave this sector or Earth will suffer the same fate as every other world before it. She raised an eyebrow. You know, threats are usually more effective when the person making them isn't being recorded by 17 observation probes hidden in nearby asteroids. Kether's eyes went wide. What? Oh yes. I didn't come alone, she said brightly. Standard procedure for deep space contact. We seeded the system with autonomous drones days ago. You've been studied since you entered visual range, the tactical officer gasped. Confirmed. We've been scanned on multiple spectrums. Dr. Chen offered a final smile. Don't worry, Admiral. No harm done. But now that Earth knows you're here, the proper departments will be in touch. Do be patient. They tend to move a bit slowly unless someone actually fires first. The screen blinked off. For the first time in Kether's long career, he was left not in command but dismissed. No screams, no surrender. Just a polite wave from a human researcher who had studied his world-killing ship like a passing insect. And worst of all, that hadn't won. He had been documented. The crew of the Void Reaper stood frozen. No orders came, no weapons fired. Only silence remained. And somewhere, far away, Earth listened, watched, and began to prepare. Dr. Chen blinked, clearly caught off guard. Our military, not really the best person to ask about that. I work in xenobiology, not defense. But I can tell you we have a Department of Planetary Security, and I think the Space Defense Network is still under Admiral Ruiz. He's been around forever. Oh, and we recently upgraded our orbital countermeasure platforms. I read about it in a science journal last month. Kether's throat tightened. That was not the answer he wanted. You mean to tell me your people have spread to hundreds of systems, formed alliances with multiple advanced species? develop technologies beyond our scouts' comprehension, and you have no idea how your military functions. Dr. Chen smiled apologetically. Well, I know the basics. Everyone gets emergency training when they sign up for off-world work. We have orbital arrays, planetary shields, fleet coordination protocols, but I don't know specifics. I study reproductive ecology in vacuum-adapted species. Military stuff is ... not really my area. Kethel stared at the screen, stunned. The humans had managed all this with defenses integrated across their colonies, and their scientists weren't even briefed on the threat they posed to the galaxy. That level of casual ignorance could only come from deep, unshakable confidence. It meant they didn't feel threatened by anyone. He tried a new angle. How did your species expand so far without our notice? Dr. Chen tilted her head. I imagine we weren't considered relevant. Our early signals were messy. We went quiet for a while after the War of Reclamation. Earth needed time to rebuild, but after that ... we just moved outward. We weren't trying to conquer anything, so there wasn't much noise. We built where no one else wanted to go. The Admiral's stomach turned. And you encountered no resistance? Or there were a few skirmishes early on. Pirates, automated defenses, from long-dead civilizations. But nothing serious. Once we made contact with the Altarians, we joined their navigational treaty network. That opened a lot of doors. The Tory sector alone has dozens of viable systems. Kether's voice dropped to a low growl. And what of your weapons? Your dreadnoughts, your planetary siegecraft? Dr. Chen gave him a blank look. We don't really use those terms. Most of our larger vessels are hybrids, research platforms with defensive capabilities. There are combat cruisers, of course, but they're usually stationed near unstable zones or along trade routes. I think there's a deterrent fleet in the Aridan belt, but it's mostly drones. The last full deployment was, about 20 years ago, I think. Kether's claws clenched against the command rail. You've achieved all this without conquest. We didn't need to conquer anything, she said simply. Space is big, Admiral. There's room for everyone, especially if you're not trying to take what others have. It's easier to build new than to steal old. Her words burned like acid. The Zephyrian hegemony had spent centuries expanding through war, extermination, and enforced assimilation. Their empire stretched across 400 systems, but every world they ruled was drenched in fear. And here was a species that had done the same thing more, even without shedding a drop of blood. How? He whispered. How did we not see you? Dr. Chen shrugged. Maybe you weren't looking, or maybe we were just beneath your notice. That happens a lot, you know. People mistake quiet for weakness. Kether's vision blurred. He tried to rally. Then why send you to meet us? If your people are so powerful, why not send a general, a war fleet, someone who commands respect? The human on the screen gave a genuine, warm smile. Because that's not how we do things. You showed up in a warship, broadcasting destruction, and we responded with curiosity. That's the difference between us. You expected screams. Admiral, we sent a scientist. Silence fell again on the bridge of the Void Reaper, and in that silence Kether realized the truth. They had lost. Not in battle, not in fire, but in perception. The fear protocol hadn't just failed, it had backfired. The humans weren't scared because they didn't need to be. They weren't reacting because they had already accounted for threats like him and decided they weren't worth escalation. He took a step back from the console. Your people are dangerous, he said quietly. Dr. Chen laughed again, softly. That's what the Altarians said too. But we're not dangerous in the way you think. We're explorers, not conquerors. Builders, not destroyers. But if pushed, well, let's just say we've learned to defend ourselves. Kether glanced at his crew. Not a word was spoken, but the fear was real now on his bridge. You're going to leave now, aren't you? He asked. She nodded. My daughter's school play starts in 5 days. If I leave now, I'll make it back in time. She's playing a tree. Very proud of it. That final sentence shattered Kether's composure. Not because of what it meant, but because of what it didn't. She was returning to a normal life, completely unbothered by the fact that she had just stared down the most feared ship in the galaxy. Goodbye, Admiral, she said pleasantly. And thank you for the conversation. It's been ... enlightening. The transmission ended. The tiny human vessel turned and began to drift away, leaving the Void Reaper motionless in space. Kether stared at the empty screen. Then he whispered, so softly only he could hear, we were never the apex. Far across the stars, Earth prepared no speeches, no declarations. It simply waited. And now the galaxy knew humans had returned and they were done being underestimated. Help him, not threaten, not manipulate. Help. She wasn't warning him like an enemy. She was speaking to him like a disappointed colleague trying to steer a peer away from disaster. In that moment, the full weight of the situation finally settled on Kether's shoulders. This wasn't just a failed intimidation. This was a complete paradigm collapse. The Zephyrian hegemony had spent centuries defining themselves by strength measured in fleets, weapons, and the number of stars bent to their will. But the humans didn't measure power that way. They measured it in alliances, in ideas, in cooperation that spanned light years. And worst of all, They had built a network so vast and so deeply rooted that the hegemony hadn't even noticed it growing. He was staring at the edge of a cliff, and beyond it lay a future his empire was not prepared to face. Dr. Chen was still watching him, now with quiet empathy. "You look troubled, Admiral. Are you all right?" "I don't know," he said hoarsely. She gave a gentle nod. "It's a lot to take in. First contact can be overwhelming, especially when expectations don't match reality." Kether chuckled, though it came out hollow and strained. "You could say that again." She hesitated a moment, then spoke more softly. "For what it's worth, I believe your people can find a better way. You clearly have discipline, infrastructure, a capacity for grand organization. That kind of talent doesn't have to be used for conquest. It can build peace, too." "Peace doesn't conquer planets," Kether muttered. "Maybe not," she replied. "But it can build civilizations that last longer than fear ever could, that hit him harder than any threat ever had." For centuries the Zephyrians had conquered, subjugated, demanded tribute, and yet they lived in constant paranoia. Every new species was a potential threat, every border a front line. They had peace. Yes, but it was peaceboard at blaster point, and now he saw that the humans didn't live that way. They weren't constantly looking over their shoulder. They looked outward with curiosity, not suspicion. He couldn't help but ask, "What if we wanted to change?" Dr. Chen blinked in surprise. "Pardon?" "If we wanted to move away from conquest," he said, struggling with the words. "What would that look like? What would we have to do to be ... accepted?" There was a long pause. Then she smiled. Again, softly this time. "Well, first you'd have to stop attacking people. That's fair. Then ... maybe reach out, make contact with the Council's diplomatic corps. There's a process. A lot of species have gone through it. Some took decades, but the Council is very patient." He didn't know what was more surreal, that she was outlining a political transition for an empire built on annihilation, or that part of him wanted to listen. "I'll need time," he said. "My government, my people, this won't be easy." "Of course," she said. "No one expects overnight change, but someone has to start the conversation." Kether nodded slowly. "Perhaps someone is me." A quiet moment passed between them. Then Dr. Chen glanced at a small screen off camera. Looks like my observation window's closing. I've got to slingshot around a local gas giant to catch the next jump corridor back toward home." "You're leaving?" he asked. "Well, I did promise my daughter I'd make it back in time," she said with a fond smile. "Like I said, school play." Trees don't wait. Kether didn't know what to say. For a being who had led 1,000 fleets, reduced entire civilizations to dust, and held countless worlds in submission, he suddenly felt very small. "Dr. Chen," he said, "thank you for speaking with me honestly. Or not treating us the way we might have treated others." She smiled again. "That's just who we are, Admiral. And I think, someday, you might find it's who your people could be, too." The screen went dark. On the bridge of the Void Reaper, no one spoke. Kether turned slowly to face his command crew. Each one bore the same expression: disbelief, awe, confusion. The fear protocol had failed. The intimidation tactics, useless. They had met his species beyond fear, not because they lacked emotion, but because they had evolved past needing fear as a guide. "Set a course," Kether said finally. "For where, Admiral?" He stared out at the stars. For once he didn't have an answer. But he knew this: the galaxy was not what the Zephyrians thought it was, and Earth was not alone. They had grown in silence, and now the silence was broken. The old galaxy, the one ruled by fear and power, was ending. Something new was beginning. And the Void Reaper would not be the harbinger of death this time. It might be the first to change. She wasn't threatening him with the power of 200 allied species. She was warning him, like a teacher guiding a student away from a fatal mistake. "Dr. Chen," Kether said slowly, "what would happen if someone attacked Earth specifically?" The human scientist's face grew somber. "Well, Earth is the founding member of the Council, and home to about 12 billion people. An attack on Earth would almost certainly trigger the full mutual defense clause. Every member species would be obligated to respond." She shook her head, regret in her voice. "It would be the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Hundreds of thousands of ships, maybe millions. The economic disruption alone would be catastrophic, not to mention the scientific research that would have to be abandoned while everyone focused on the crisis." Dr. Chen looked directly into the screen, her voice quiet but firm. "I really hope no one is foolish enough to try something like that. The waste would be absolutely heartbreaking." Kether stood frozen on the bridge of the Void Reaper, finally grasping the truth. Earth hadn't sent Dr. Chen because they were weak. They had sent her because they were so powerful, so confident in their securities that they could afford to treat his arrival as a scientific curiosity rather than a military emergency. The Void Reaper, the most feared warship in Zephyrian space, was nothing more than a floating puzzle to a civilization backed by 200 allied species. Dr. Chen hadn't shown bravery in speaking to him. She simply knew with quiet certainty that she was never in danger. Kether finally understood why there had been no pleas from Earth, no fleets launched in panic. The humans weren't preparing for war. They already knew it. Couldn't be won against them. They were preparing for discovery because that was how they approached everything in their universe. Now it was up to him to decide what to do with that knowledge. The Admiral stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by a crew that looked as dazed as he felt. The conversation with Dr. Chen had lasted 6 hours, and every minute of it had dismantled another piece of their assumptions. The humans were not primitives waiting to be conquered. They were the calm eye of a storm no one had seen coming. "Admiral," the communications officer said carefully, "Dr. Chen is requesting permission to take detailed scans of our ship. She says it would help her write a better first contact report." Kether almost laughed. After everything, the human scientists still wanted to study them. She was treating their encounter like a research project for a conference. "Sir," whispered the weapons officer, "should we prepare to attack? We can destroy her ship before she reports back." Kether turned slowly toward the young officer. "And then what?" he asked softly. "She mentioned needing to return home for her daughter's school play. When she fails to arrive, what do you think will happen?" The weapons officer hesitated. "Earth will send search parties," Kether said. "They will wonder why their scientists vanished while investigating a new species. They will send proper military vessels. When they learn we destroyed a peaceful research ship, they will call upon their 200 allied species for assistance." Silence gripped the bridge. Now, even the most zealous officers understood they weren't standing over a weak world. They were perched on the edge of galactic suicide. Dr. Chen's voice returned. "Admiral, sorry to bother you again, but I really should get going. My daughter's play is tomorrow evening, and I promised I wouldn't miss it. She's playing a tree, and she's been practicing for weeks." Kether's 3 eyes closed. A child's school play. That's what she was leaving for. He had met this galaxy's most advanced civilization, and they were sending scientists to first contact meetings because the military wasn't needed. "Dr. Chen," he asked slowly, "are you not concerned that we might follow you back to Earth?" The human looked surprised. "Follow me? Why would you want to do that? You're welcome to visit Earth, of course, though probably best to contact our diplomatic corps first." She brightened. "Actually, there's a big xenobiology conference on Mars next month. Perfect chance for cultural exchange. You'd meet researchers from dozens of species." Kether felt the last of his confidence crumble. He had not just lost a battle, he had lost the war before it. "Began Dr. Chen," he said desperately. "Do you understand that we could destroy your world?" She tilted her head, concerned. "Admiral, are you feeling all right? You've asked a lot of strange questions about attacking planets. That's not normal behavior." She leaned forward, brow furrowed with gentle concern. "If your people struggle with aggression, there are excellent therapists who specialize in interspecies psychology. The Andromedan Institute does great work helping conquest-based cultures transition peacefully." Kether blinked. She thought he needed therapy. "We do not need therapy," he said weakly. "Of course not," she replied quickly. "I didn't mean to imply anything was wrong. Some civilizations go through violent phases. Perfectly normal. The important thing is knowing when it's time to move on." It was the death of the Zephyrian hegemon in fire, but in obsolescence. The humans had built something better, and they were offering it. "Dr. Chen," he whispered, "what if a species refuses to change?" Her smile faded. "That's rare, but when it happens, we try diplomacy, economic sanctions, if needed. If they still harm others, the Council intervenes militarily." She sighed. "Sometimes they negotiate, sometimes they retreat into isolation. In the worst cases, they vanish." Kether understood. "Not exterminated, just left behind." "Admiral," she said gently, "I hope your people choose peace. You have so much potential." Kether felt something break inside. The path forward was clear and terrible. Abandon everything the hegemony had built, or disappear into irrelevance. "I must return to my fleet," he said. "Of course," she said, beaming. "This has been wonderful. I've learned so much. Oh, and if you ever visit Earth, let me know. My daughter would love to meet you. She's fascinated by aliens." The screen went dark. Kether stood alone, his crew stunned. "She wants me to meet her child," he murmured. "She trusts us enough for that." He turned to the helm. "Set course away from this system. Maximum speed." "Where are we going, Admiral?" Kether stared into the stars. "Home," he said. "We're going to write a very different kind of report." And somewhere between 200 species and one tiny research vessel, an empire began to change.